we're coming on working together for more than a decade now. And I think when we started Criminal, Lauren and I were both working in public radio at WUNC, and we were sitting on my back porch one night in Chapel Hill, and Lauren said, well, what if we make our own show? And we don't have to ask anyone what to do or what stories we should cover. We'll just do whatever we're curious about. And I said, well, that's a good idea. What should we do it about? And Lauren said, how about crime? And I thought, well, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard. We're never going to run out of stories. I'm Phoebe Judge. This is Criminal.
I remember one of the early episodes we interviewed this man about getting the phone call that his family members had been killed in a mass shooting.
And the phone rang, and I looked down, and it was Mom's cell. And so I walked out to where I could hear, and that she told me, she said, you know, your father's dead.
And I remember being really nervous about this and saying to Phoebe, like, I don't think we should bother them. I don't think we should talk to them. We have to leave them alone in some way. But we crafted this sort of request to see, would they be interested in talking about this experience? And they said yes. And then I had never had that experience of someone getting to talk as long as they wanted.
Family members of murder victims are often captured on television. We're shown their grief, and we watch them try to respond when they're asked impossible questions. Lauren and I thought, well, wait a second. Someone might see this who actually was impacted by this crime. What will they think? We have to be aware of who the audience could be, and we weren't seeing enough of that compassion or empathy or respect for the people impacted by these stories. It was just ratings a lot of the time. And we thought, well, I think maybe we could do it a little bit better.
I feel like that we did my father and Reed proud, and I think we continue to. And maybe helping people figure out how to get through it. You know, that it is okay to release the names and release some pictures. It's okay. Tell your story. Tell your loved one's story the way you want it to be told. It's going to get told one way or the other. You may as well be the ones, trying to do the telling.
What we wanted was to talk for an hour and have a conversation and sort of think about this experience that we don't know anything about, but this person has. And so I think a sort of very patient, sort of slow conversational approach, that was something that we didn't see anyone else doing. And, people are very curious about Phoebe's voice, and she does speak slowly and she listens. And I think that sort of, we were able to sort of build something out of our natural curiosities and her natural skills. In my experience working in public radio, no one pitched anything about crime stories, but there was a sort of sense that was lowbrow and that was for local news. And that sort of if it bleeds, it leads, sensational crime storytelling was somehow beneath public radio. And we had all these skills as, Phoebe was guest hosting and I had been producing forever. I was directing, we had these skills. And then I thought no one is taking this sort of lens or this sort of humane sensibility and just interviewing people who've been impacted by crime. So it felt to us like we were going to try to bring our skills to something that nobody else was doing. Go back, read ahead from Harris.
They arrested Robert Harris. There was never any contest. None of it had been real. There wasn't a flat tire. There wasn't a television station. And there wasn't a breakfast with Boy George. The whole thing had been a sting. I'm Phoebe Judge. This is Criminal.
Pretty good.
I think we could start it. I think we need to start it after there, because I'm rushing. Let's just try it with there. Okay, ready?
We just sort of offered people a different way to think about crime stories on the radio. We still say radio. We don't say podcast.
We also were, I think, responding to the types of crime reporting that we were seeing out there, be that print or television or radio. I mean, it dramatized the worst moments of someone's life. It focused on the violence. It sensationalized. It focused on fear. There was a thrill that someone was supposed to get by reading these stories. Had chosen to pick up the gun or the knife. This is Gordon Parks. My new suggestion is this.
What else do you have?
When he was 25-year-old Gordon Parks bought a camera in a pawn shop.
It feels like French cooking show.
I think Lauren and I have been successful at this for so long because we have rather a common worldview, which is that I don't think either one of us believe that people are evil. I think we believe people do bad things and they get themselves into horrible circumstances. But if you don't believe at a base level that you can call someone good or bad, it opens up the way that you tell a story. You have more curiosity about how people get themselves in the positions that they do. The judge who presided over Travell's trial also sent Steve a letter to include. It began, "In more than 34 years on the bench, I never previously submitted a letter in support of a clemency application. I enthusiastically do so now on behalf of Travell Coleman." He wrote about Travell turning himself in. "In my experience, such an act of conscience is vanishingly rare." Well, the fact that Travell Coleman shot a gun is not that interesting. What's interesting in that story is that he decided that he couldn't live with himself and that he would turn himself in that many years later. That's the interesting part of it. People are shot every day. Usually it's a terrible mistake. Usually it's not that premeditated. Something happens. That story, we could tell that story 1,000 times a day. But the difference between Travell's story is that this is a guy who did something. He wasn't actually, I think, meaning to shoot this man. It happened. It was a robbery gone bad. But he couldn't live with himself. And so he took himself to a police station twice because he showed up the first time and the cop said, "Get out of here. What are you talking about?" And it wasn't good enough. And so he came back and he said, "No, I have to know. I shot a man many years ago, and I don't know if he survived." That, to us, is why we told Travell Coleman's story. It was not that an act happened when he was a teenager. It was that this man could not live with himself. And so for us, that's why we tell the story. It's not enough that a crime was committed. It's how complex do things get after the crime is committed. And, a lot of people have said, "Well, you're a true crime show." And I say, yes, we're a true crime show, I guess, but we're really kind of just a show about the human experience.
There's nothing Phoebe likes more than a live show. Really? Which is, I get it because we are alone in working on our computers in sort of dark rooms, dark studios.
Phoebe, we told lies.
Telling stories and telling jokes and saying phrases all the time, I have no idea how the audience is reacting. They are hearing me in their ears, but I can't see their faces. And so it's thrilling and terrifying at the same time to be there in front of 1,000 people saying those words and being able to look in their face and see if they're smiling or nodding or if they're asleep. But it's such a nice thing to meet people, to meet people who've been with us on this journey for 10 years.
Would you like it to say anything?
To Megan from Phoebe's.
Megan with an A.
Megan. Yes.
No H.
No H.
Okay.
No.
You have been to a show before, you haven't?
No, this is my first time. I lived in Greensboro for a long time.
We know that at any moment someone can turn us off, and so it's our job to gain their time and attention. And this 10th anniversary tour is an opportunity. Yes, it's fun to go around the country and to do this in front of an audience, but it's also a chance for us to say thank you for sticking with us for all of these years, and we hope to keep bringing you the show for a long time.
Thank you for just thank you for making the podcast and continuing to make it.
We're going to try to keep making it.
My favorite, hands down.